I go extra every day, I got extras on the way. How much? Extra, extra. How much? Extra, extra.
You wrote a book. I think it's been a couple years now at this point, right?
I think so, at least a year, yeah.
Okay. And it's titled The Perfect Average Day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I just wanted you wrote a book about it, but it's more, I would say, like a concept, right?
Yeah. So what's funny is I generally forget that happened, because it was like it was a cool project, and at the time it was really more of a mental exercise, and then something that I was kind of told I should really like put out there and just get it out, and maybe it could help one other person. And I never saw it as like a project that was going to go and make me rich and famous or anything like that. It started out as an open letter to my boy, who's now 4. And I was and had been going through just like a tough transition of, really it was a culmination of like 10 years of transition, right? And starting a business, having a vision, achieving that vision, thinking it was everything that I wanted, going down all these paths of like trying to, be famous on social media and be a speaker on stage and flip a whole bunch of houses and run a big business, and every kind of avenue I kept like exhausting. I would get to the end of it and I was like, this isn't what I thought. Whether it was the people I was influenced by, and getting to like, meet your heroes and then finding out that they were basically garbage humans behind the scenes, or, seeing big businesses that I really thought were awesome and then getting on the inside of it and like all their employees like hate working there and they hate it too, or they built themselves a prison. And I was just like finding all of these dead ends. And then, getting married, becoming a dad, and then like COVID and the business changing so much for that. My friends in the entrepreneur space were dropping like flies to suicide, and just like, so I just knew there was this conversation that wasn't being had, that we were kind of all going through and like feeling of all like chasing this thing that is this, social media influence and all this vanity online. And when I lost one of my best friends, like that I basically had been coming up in the game alongside of, and he's married and he had 2 young kids, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like that could have been me. And it scared the hell out of me. And so I was like, I need to get all these thoughts out.
What part of it scared you exactly? Was it more like the pressure of everything that you feel like was like you're trying to achieve all these things and you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself? Is that what scared you to kind of go down this route?
What it scared me was that like I talked to him, just a few days before, and like knew some things were going bad, but not like that bad to where you want to throw in the towel, and you got like little kids and stuff, and
yeah,
and I'd had a lot of like really tough like mental roller coasters and stuff over the years, and and I'd been very, very depressed and in very like challenging states. And yes, it's pressure. It's not knowing what you want. It's building something I felt like I had lost control of, or like I said, literally every idol, every influence that like I had or I'd met, when I got like behind the scenes of it, it just wasn't what it was. And so like I was like completely lost. This was really leading into COVID, kind of going through COVID. And this was really personally, because business, I've always been able to separate the two. I've always been able to like navigate, keep a clear head, keep extremely logical about the business side of things, about like, where we need to go.
Don't let it stress you out too much? Or is it
could stress me out a bunch, but I never was unclear about what needed to happen in business, and then executing, regardless of what I was doing or happening. So like between the hours of 9 and 5 or whatever, let's just call it for simple sake.
Yeah.
Execute.
Okay.
Operator doesn't, whatever would be happening from the hours of 5 to 9. I could be partying, could be drinking, could be doing whatever, could be arguing, with the wife, like could be having the worst thing, just doing everything against like what you would think would be a well-rounded, like successful person.
Yeah.
And making me miserable, but then still operate perfectly fine.
Still be a high performer and kind of like disregard that almost.
All of it.
Way. Yeah. Okay.
All of it. And, And so seeing all that happen, like I said, I watched multiple friends drop. They were dropping like flies in 2020 to 2022.
Mm-hmm.
6 guys off the top of my head, like that all were crushing it.
Wow. Yeah.
That we thought, and a couple things go sideways, a couple things go bad, and these guys are checking out. And I'm just like, man, this is scary. Because and so I was like, okay, how like there's got to be a way to kind of get back control of this, get back balance of this, both in like the personal side of things, but also in the business. And we had the answers in the business, right? You had the traction model, you have all this stuff, right? And so it's like, in the personal side, you have the 75 hard with Andy Frisella, and I was a part of Arte, like all these, things to where, but they just weren't translating to my personal life or to like mine and my wife's relationship or to, just how I was trying to basically balance and develop, life. And so all I did was in that book was just tell a story from, getting started out in business, losing my dad 6 months, after starting a business, a motorcycle accident, and basically like saying, okay, at the time when I started out, it was like, I want to build everything in honor of him. And it was a cool thing. It was a real thought, but over time it just became a cool thing to say. And it wasn't, so it was like, I'm doing everything for him. And in spite of the people that I can't, or that said I couldn't, instead of like doing stuff for me and what I wanted to build, and or all of the influences that were around me when I was young and very moldable. I mean, I started out in this business when I was 19 years old, and you're extremely moldable and extremely influenced. And like I said, going down all of the ends of those paths, coming out on the other side of that at like 2020, I was like, it was just, there were some scary times and moments of like, what am I doing here? Like, what's the purpose of being here and stuff like that. And, ultimately, my wife and I did 75 hard together because she was silently fighting the same war. Like leaving grad school, she's a counselor, and now she runs her own business too. So we both run, businesses together, which is pretty cool. And, has its ups and has its perks, and it's, but she was we were both like silently fighting two battles, or the same battle.
And you weren't aware of that for a while?
We could feel it, but we never talked about
it. Got it.
And so 75 hard, get you sober.
Yeah.
We did every workout together, so we were together and talking and clear for 90 days. And so it just was like a total like vision reset, total vision cast, like a total get on the same page, try to get these things together. And for the first time, that made me feel like I had a personal system that was almost like an EOS, and really down the road, like much later, because that is good as that program is, there's some real negative aspects of it when you come off of it, because
75 hard.
Yes. You've seen now your peak performance, but it's also, you realize that it's really hard to sustain or maintain, your peak performance. So then if you go and have a couple of beers, a few days after you finish 75 hard, you feel like the biggest piece of crap.
Yeah, totally guilty. Yeah,
on the planet. And it's like, that's not a really sustainable feeling either. And so then what that has become for me now is bumper rails of like, when shit's going bad, it's an easy momentum gainer of like, I'm just going to do one day. Okay. I'll do one day 75 hard, just say for instance, or you know what, things are grinding, I need a month. And she's kind of the same way. And so what that book ended up basically becoming was, like I said, it was a story about all these things of, my 10 years in business from, and really before that, because obviously I go talk about childhood and stuff and the different stories that happened there that molded me into now the way I think about business. And like just being able to tell my boy and tell other people like that story.
Yeah.
And like at that point when I started the project, I felt like I was really, really clear on some things that I felt were really important, and I needed to get them down on paper. That was more than, a Facebook post.
You felt like you kind of figured something out, right? Yep. And you needed it. You felt like you needed to tell people about it in a way, and more specifically share it with your children in a different way, right?
Yeah, and what it is, it's not, there's there's a couple of original thoughts in there, of course, but like it was really like almost like a culmination and like a paying homage to like all the people that like taught me stuff. Like I like talk about everybody else in that book that like helped me do this or where I got this idea. Like I didn't even, the perfect average day like didn't even come from me. That came from conversation with Sal Frisella when I was out there for art day.
Yeah.
And we're having a couple of beers and my question to him, I was like, I realized when I went out there, I was like, dude, like Sal's the magic, man. He's an incredible human and he's somebody I truly like inspires me and truly influences me, that like I've seen the back end of that. And like, I'm like, no, that dude, that's a really, really good.
For people that don't know, Sal Frisella is the brother of Andy Frisella. They run the company First Form. Andy created 75 Hard and super successful entrepreneurs.
Been around like him, those like Ed Milet and stuff like that. And but Sal, I was like, so when I went out there, I had just finished 75 Hard the day before. So I was like trying not to like, drink or whatever like that. And Sal was like, bullshit, dude. Let's like have a beer.
Yeah.
And I think we were just pregnant. Em was just pregnant with Weston.
Okay.
Like we had just found out like a couple months before. So I'm freaking out. Yeah. I'm like, what are we going to do? Kid, like, and then, we went out again, like a year, this was a couple years later. Me and Em went out, St. Louis for another event, and we were having Willow. Same, so she was pregnant with Willow.
Yeah.
But that first conversation, I was just like, dude, like, how do you balance this and do it? He's like, well, I don't have it all figured out. He goes, but I got it pretty simple right now. He's like, I wake up at 5 to 7 is me time, 7 to 9 is family time, 9 to 5 is kick ass and business time. 5 to 7 or 5 to 8 is kid time. 8 to 8:01 is trying to get some time. And then he's like 8:01 to 10 is, wife time.
Got it.
And I was like, that's brilliant. I wonder if I could just structure that.
Yeah. Time blocking essentially, right?
Yeah. For your different stuff. But then what ended up, happening after that was I started like thinking about it. I was like, wait a second, we've done this 100 times over in masterminds that we've taught or been a part of, and we've always asked people like, what's your perfect day?
Yeah.
And you have a perfect day exercise, and people will be like, oh, I'd fly to the beach, or I'd go to Italy for pizza, or Chicago, whatever. I'd fly over, all this crazy stuff, and it's like, what's your dream day? And it's like, I literally was like, no, the exercise is like, what's your perfect average day?
That's where you got the average from. And what does that mean exactly to you? Like the average in
what's the day that's perfect to you to live most days?
Yeah.
Than not, right? And it's like, okay, how do you structure that? And that's way more attainable than living your perfect day every day. And so it's just like, how do I fill all of my buckets? Or how do you fill all of your buckets? That's asking the question. It's like, what are your buckets that you need filled on a daily or damn near daily basis? And how do you make sure you fill them? And that's the concept of it. And really what it ends up becoming is like a pretty solid like bumper rail, and saying, okay, like on average, I want to wake up and this is how I want my day to go. And these are the things that I need to have in my day in order for me to sustain and like not burn out.
Is that, when you say bumper reel, does that mean like, hey, I'm feeling off, I need to go to my bumper reel and to my perfect average day and do that for a day, maybe 2 days?
I'm saying you bounce off I'm saying everyone say it goes off the rails.
Yeah.
I now like to just bump into them.
Okay. I see.
Yeah. I talk about it in the book. Like I talk about, basically the drift, the slide, rock bottom. When you're like questioning things or things are uncertain, then typically we start to like drift and kind of like come off of our disciplines, and one thing falls off and some other things kind of fall off, and next thing you know, you're kind of drifting, and then you kind of lose some purpose, some vision. You kind of start to question like why you're doing things or whatever, but typically we don't hard stop ourselves typically and like bounce off the rail back into the middle. Typically we just like kind of throw our hands up, and then you start drinking more, you start letting things go more, you start eating worse, you start going all towards more things that are comfortable but we know aren't good for us, and that's when you start sliding.
Yeah.
Because then you start, if you're a high performer, I mean anybody does this, but it happens a lot more I think with like high performing people or people that really have like high goals, is that now the gap between what you know you should be doing and what you're doing is getting further and farther, which is sadder
You
and
don't even
sadder.
realize it almost, right? It's like,
And then when you realize it, most of us have a really hard time actually just going, all I need to do is win the next day and I
yeah,
can get my momentum back. It's you realize it and you're like, fuck, this is this, and you just go the other way. You just
yeah,
go worse.
yeah,
And we got to go find some new rock bottom, and then we hit rock bottom and then it's like, oh yeah, it's a great story to climb out of,
yeah,
whatever.
man, that's crazy. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like you hit, you're like, wow, I'm in the pit. Like this sucks. Everything's going bad. I feel terrible. But it's like, I swear, it's sometimes like it's like the next week. You're like, I'm doing great. Like it like kind of lights a fire under your ass almost. But then sometimes I feel like it's like a cycle of that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it is. It is. And what ends up happening in my experience is that the highs stay the same, but the lows get lower.
Yeah.
The lows get
Okay.
lower. Lows get lower. So you'll plateau, or maybe climb back up. It's just, and I always joke about, like I said, man, no one can slide down to rock bottom faster than me. I said, dude, if I start to realize things are going bad, I'm like a kid on top of a mountaintop on a tricycle. I take my feet off the pedals and we're going, baby. We're gonna burn it to the ground.
Yeah.
And because I've back in the day was known to go on benders and disappear, but I never affected to a. It of course affected business, but it never I didn't like burn the business down. I would just go home and drown myself in whatever, and then
Yeah.
wake up the next morning feeling like shit, but knew I still had a list.
Still got it
I
done.
still got my list
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
So over the time, it's just become a concept of like trying to kind of bounce off the bumper rails and just have a system that you don't like hit. Like, it's not about hitting it every single day like a 75 heart. And I love the mental exercise of that is the most important portion of that exercise. um, I do feel that it is uh, I do feel it is unsustainable for most people for forever, for even a long period of time, and the guilt that kind of comes with like failing it outside of the challenge just isn't worth it. And so this is kind of like my idea of like a step down and
Mm-hmm.
being like, how do I fill all my buckets and just make sure like I'm batting whatever 700.
Does that for you, like, so you have these super low rock bottoms and super highs, and you're saying the bottom gets lower. Does the perfect average day concept kind of keep you at like a nice steady medium? Is that how you look at it?
attempts?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like perfect, right? Like you
sure.
still have, like, I mean, shit, dude, my last like couple of months, really last couple of quarters, like, there was portions of things like getting your ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
And, so you lose confidence. And when you lose confidence, like it's the same thing. Just, well, this time I, these times now, like I know when I'm getting there, like I gotta hit my basics. I gotta make sure I'm learning something. I gotta make sure I'm breaking a sweat. I gotta make sure I have my family time. I gotta make sure I have my wife time. And I gotta
Yeah,
make sure I get my shit done in business. And it's just like, so it's like my fallback. And it's like, okay, well, if I didn't get my work, if I didn't get a workout in today, like I haven't been able to go to the gym in like 3 weeks. And it's not that I'm not working out or like moving my body. So then I say, you know what? What's my fallback? As long as I broke a sweat and like got out with the kid and like ran around or did something like that, like I can not get depressed
I see.
about it,
Yeah, yeah,
because that's what would happen. Again, it's once you get into a place where you're always thinking about what you could be doing, what you should be doing, and then you start to measure against the things that you're actually able to do, like there's always a gap there. And I think again, when we're trying to win all the time, that like those losses start to stack up, and that become like that just kind of veers you away from what the actual truth is of like, dude, sometimes we're just trying to keep it together.
Yeah, seriously, and then it ends up like hurting your confidence. It hurts your like your self worth in a way, right? If you
Yeah.
look at it like
It
that,
hurts your decision making.
yeah,
If you're not confident in yourself and your decision making, then how can you lead how can you lead other people?
right,
It starts to rub off on the rest of your team. Like, and so, that's become a big part of the game for me at this point is like, I've always been like self-aware in a negative way, but trying to be more like self-aware in like a positive way of like what type of energy you're giving off, like how that affects everybody. Cause like, dude, I'm the type of guy, if I have a bad morning, I come into meetings and I'm pissed off and I'm going to find everything wrong.
yeah,
But like, and the team knows that, the team feels that, and then I get yelled at for it in a good way. Or if I have a great morning, I'm rolling in, I'm like, everything's all hunky dory, whatever. I mean, shit could be totally wrong, but it's
yeah,
like, hey, it's all good, guys. Let's solve this,
right,
And so, me trying to be more equilibrium outside of trying to do as many things that can keep things in equilibrium as possible when you're trying to balance, you know, kids and wife and your own stuff and businesses and everything else. And so yeah, long story short, that's the general concept of it. Um, and I've thought about, I didn't do too much. I didn't do too much with it. A great launch, and it's been sold a lot of them, and that's been really cool. And the coolest part about it is the messages I'll still get like randomly.
mm,
Man, just this one thing like really helped out or whatever. But I've now that I've gotten even a couple years removed from that, I've recently started to like consider going back and really redoing it and like really putting even more and more effort into it and like stretching the concepts out and tying some other things in because of
yeah.
course I've had many ideas after that, but
It's more evolving than anything, too. I'm
mhm.
sure it's like you had those ideas at that time, your life situation, but as you keep moving forward and growing and learning, it's constantly
Yeah,
changing, right?
and it was a super cool project to do in general, just to be like I wanted to know and learn the process of writing a book
Yeah,
and like who's involved, what it takes, like how much are you actually involved versus like a ghostwriter or
yeah,
like things like that, right? Like where do these concepts come from? Where's all the fillers at? Like, what's a good read? Um, how do people get covers done? How do you get publishing deals? Like that type of
you
stuff,
were just
right?
genuinely curious about it, then.
Yeah, and I said, what I want to do is I'd really like to from here on out. I wrote that at 30. So I like do 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, something like that. Just like every like 5 years with just really the same mentality of like, if my kids read this, that's cool.
Yeah,
If I can get them to read it and they get to know about your dad and stuff like that, that would be cool. And because like too, like I feel like we do so much shit. Like I forget. I feel like more than most people, whatever the quote is, more forget more than most people remember in a lifetime,
yeah,
whatever it is. So sometimes like I'll go back through and I'm like, dang, I forgot I even wrote
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's nice to have it on paper. How did you implement that into your life? Like, was it like kind of sitting down, like, hey, what's important to me? What's like, what makes me most happy? What do I need to get done in a day? And then kind of like time block it from there. Is that,
yeah, and for me now with two kids and they're young and they don't sleep and stuff like that, like it's ever changing, right? And so
yeah.
that's been a big struggle for me is that it's constantly a moving target.
Hmm.
And so it's so initially I was so tied to the time blocking aspect of it, of like I need to go to the gym at 5, and which I'd never did. I'd wake up at 5 and I'd get to the gym at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. But like
5 sounds
5 to 7,
better.
yeah, 5 to 7 is me time. I'm gonna get my reading in. I'm gonna get my day planned. I'm gonna go to the gym, shower, and when Weston will wake up at like 7 or 8, like perfect. I'm gonna hang out with him. But and then I'm gonna leave for work at like 8:30, then work till 5 or whatever the day requires. Because some days don't. Some days require more. Some days require less. But let's just say on average 5. And then I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna have dinner with my family. We're gonna hang out, and then I'm gonna hang out with my wife. And if
Yeah.
she needs some help, with something, whatever else, and then cool, I'm going to bed. Like maybe have a glass of bourbon or a cigar on the patio. Like
Yeah.
let's just relax. Um, but I got really, really tied to the time frames. And so then that really started messing with me mentally because Weston would start waking up at 4 in the morning all of a sudden, and I'm just like, what the heck?
I just got this together. You're
Yeah,
messing it
I
up, man.
just got this together.
Yeah.
And I start resenting them. Yeah, yeah. Or something would happen in business and then, meetings would take long or whatever. We were going through a problem and I just wouldn't go to the gym. Now I'm tied to that. Right. And so now, like, it's not, it's not that I've given up. It's that I've come to terms with where I am right now is maintenance.
Mm.
And like, as far as maintaining things like physically, mentally, like it's not going all in on that and like getting shredded and whatever else. Like, dude, I'm sleeping like 5 or 6 hours a night, like, and they're broken up hours on a good night. And so is my wife, because now we have a 1 year old, but for the last year, it's like, well, if she's waking up at 1, 3, 4, and 7, and Weston's waking up at 6, how can I be selfish and go to the gym from 5? Like, how can I be selfish and go from 5 to 7? Like, just
There's
not
a lot of
right.
variability
Yes.
around all this.
And it changes every night.
Yeah.
So, like, some mornings, everything would line up perfectly where, like, the baby woke up at 5, Weston was still asleep, and I would just put her back to sleep, and I'd go to the gym and come home at 7, and everyone was still asleep. I'd bring me and wife home coffee, and it was like, oh, man, this is perfect. And I was like, finally, we did it.
Yeah.
And then the next day, be all jacked up, and I'd be really mad.
Yeah.
So it's not, like I said, it's not like giving up on being like, oh my God, I'm gonna just go be a slob and a loser. It's just like, this is not the time period of my life right now that I'm gonna be all in on every aspect. Like, what's the most important thing? So for me right now, it's our companies, it's the relationship with my wife and my kids. And if on average or over average, so call it over 3 days a week, if I can get a solid like workout in, I can break a sweat, whatever it is. I'm trying to break a sweat every day. And you do chasing around my boy. You've met him, you've seen him.
Yeah.
But if I can get 3 hours at the gym, and I'm not getting 7 or 8 hours at the gym right now. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
I'm not letting it ruin my week.
Yeah.
I'm just like, you know what? It's good right now, dude. Just maintain, like, because too, then if I go all in on that, then I lose a lot of the social aspects of it, and you kind of drop there. And our businesses can be very social or not, and like, so, it's just, and I talk about that also in the book is seasons. And like, I used to think of seasons as like 2, 3, 4 years in business. I got a season where I'm going to, when you're starting out, where you just got to grind it out no matter what. Like we talked about that a little bit earlier. You just got to grind it out. Doesn't matter. It's supposed to suck right now. That's a season. Then there's another one. Now I'm starting to think of them in like months, or quarters, and starting to have those conversations with my wife of like, hey, like, I can foresee this next month really sucking because we're dealing with shit, or this week really sucking because, so I just try to prepare of like, I'm going to be working early or working late, but then in my mind, preparing myself that like, I'm not getting to the gym this week.
It's not like that forever. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not like going to be like this for a year. It's like, no, this is a week. This is probably going to last, or maybe it'll change next week. Is that kind of how you're looking at it?
Yeah. Like when you start to feel those, like, call them like mood swings, or whatever, and then they're not like, it's not like this is every week that you think about it, but I just try to like remind myself of those things instead of drifting, sliding, hitting rock bottom. It's like, bro, it's just a week. Like, how to get all the way back. Just go have a week of 75 hard, and you'll be freaking on top of the world.
Yeah.
Really easy.
Right.
So that's, I like all those concepts. I like all of those things. And at this point, like, there's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of variable movement and stuff like that. But I'm just like, what's important? Like, what do I need to be focusing on? And like, what direction is that, going, and being a little more patient, on getting there.
I think like something like I've always struggled with especially in the last few years, is like right now. I'm all in on my career, business, and everything. Right, that's been my priority of mine. It's like I feel like when I'm hitting all cylinders on that, my relationship with my family might be coming down, or my social life might be coming down, or maybe my health is coming down. You know what I mean? It's so hard to like juggle every one of them. So I do like that, concept of like the perfect average day, because I feel like it's trying to at least somewhat maintain every piece of that, right?
Yeah.
And
It's not giving up too. Like that's the most important thing here is like it's not like, oh, I just want to be average. It's like, no, like how do I like perform as high as I like need to perform on average
yeah,
so that I can do it for a long period of time. Because of course we can all do 75 hard and have the best 75 days. But what happens the next 75 when you're depressed and you feel like a piece of shit because you're like letting up on what you knew you could do. And so then you just go back to the other side and it's like, okay, well, what if I can check my boxes as much as possible, as much as often as I need to, and keep going this way, and for those up and up and up, instead of just riding this.
So obviously, at this point in your life, I think like you have two small kids, you have a family. You're probably trying to get to a point where you can buy back your time out of the business, right? Rather than spending it at night on a Tuesday, working in the business, taking phone calls on a laptop. How have you been able to buy back your time away from your business and implement that?
Yeah. So for the longest time, we've always been really good at setting boundaries. Our business is like very challenging because a lot of it happens outside of the hours of 9 to 5 because the majority of people are looking at houses after work or they want offers written up at 11 o'clock. And I've always just been like, this is when I'm working and I'll get back to you when I'm back to working. But setting those expectations up front. Now, as far as like buying back time so I don't as often as I can, I don't let people rob me of my time.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the business goes, it's a lot of things like we've talked about over the that have happened over the years. As far as like the call it the traction type stuff, or just the overall like what tasks am I doing that I shouldn't be doing, what makes me happy, what doesn't make me happy, and that's never you're always going to be doing shit you don't like if you're running a business. So it's like, what do I need to be doing right now?
Yeah.
For as of late, where I am now, it's focusing on really dialing in the processes in the businesses to where they're entirely replicatable, not just by me, not just by you, but by like someone that's like fresh out of college, doesn't know like real estate, right? And saying, okay, like how do we really simplify this stuff so that people can manage it? And I think I think something that I did for a long time that didn't realize like that it really was an issue. It was saying like we always talk about how complicated real estate is, how complex it is, how many variables there are. We did it today.
Yeah.
But understanding too that like it is pretty simple, like, and it can be simple. And there are, when you pile it all together, it's all of those things. But if you look at it from a person sitting in a lead management seat's perspective, like it should be simple. I pick up the phone when people call. I have good conversations with them. I run some basic numbers. I set an appointment. If I can't get a hold of someone, I call them back until they pick up or they tell me to, F off. Pretty simple, right? If I am an acquisition person and I go out to a house, I need to count my windows, see if the foundation wall is bowing, add up some numbers, have a really good conversation with people, run numbers on my spreadsheet, present them an offer.
It's a checklist. Yeah.
Pretty simple stuff.
Yeah.
If I pass off to the next guy, this is what they need in order to do their job. And so for the last year, I've switched my mentality to this business is easy. This is simple. Anyone can do this. But how do we get it there is a whole nother story.
Right.
And I've been listening to a lot of Tommy Mello, A1 Garage Doors. Dude's like, whatever. I think he had like $1 billion exit on A1 Garage Doors. Like, I'm listening to a lot of his stuff lately, and literally he's like, yeah, if you don't have a checklist for this or a pass off for that, like, then you're never going to get out.
Yeah, I started doing that in just my agent and like flipping business. I started making checklists for, hey, how do we write an offer? What do you do with the listing? Or, when you get a house under contract, what are the next steps after that? I've always like had that in the back of my mind. Like those need to be set, because when I do, I don't have anybody under me right now, but when I do, I want to be able to hand them that so they can just take it and run with it. And if they have a question, great. But I guess that's a lower scale.
But it's all the same mechanics.
Yeah.
That's what we keep talking about, right? It's all the same mechanics. And I've done it over the years, time and time again, but the process has changed, the people change, the way they learn changed. And so now I'm like finally getting to the point now where I've covered all the bases. Mm-hmm. There's a video, there's a checklist, there's a pass off, there's a written version of it. Like anybody should be able to sit in that seat and learn it. And then on top of that, it's not just teaching people what to do, it's teaching them how you think, or how you would think. And so then that they can do more of the things that you would like them to do. Like for the longest time, we would say, and we wanted robots. So we build robots. And then when you have robots, you want robots that can think, and you didn't build that, And so then you're frustrated because you're always doing the thinking. And an example of this is we, for the longest time, said, if you have, and everyone does this, if you have a problem, bring me 3 solutions and I'll pick one. That's the mistake. It's like, bring me 3 issues, bring me 3 solutions, and let me know which one you think is the best and why. Trying to teach people how to identify issues, how to figure out a solution, and then be able to present like their thought process on how they got there. Like that's the difference. And I didn't know those things for a very long time, and still you forget about them. So it's that type of stuff is helping me really not necessarily buy back the time that I'm working, because I like working. I like having a purpose. I really like, driving and building a business. But it's helping me buy back on the time more things that I want to work on, where my value is, where I should be spending my time, like not just where I want to be, and that changes. And I want it to be fluid, So yeah, those are some of the things, right? Like time audits, all the normal stuff. Like, where am I spending my time? I ask people, where are you spending your time?
Yeah.
What are the tasks? But really, it's just been like really, really nailing down these processes, and then working on starting to like, it sounds so bad, and I'm sorry, but it's like working on teaching people how to think.
Yeah.
Because I just don't know a better way to say it, but it's teaching people how you think. Because we got it here, right? With the help of a lot of people, but by and large, our thoughts, our decisions, our visions, like the things we wanted implemented, the issues, the problems that we solve, like got us here. So you're trying to like, and that's what everyone's dealing with now. So you're trying to like, you know how to solve that problem 1,000 times over, but you're trying to like remember when you were in their shoes and this and that. So just
you have to bring your thinking down to a different level to help them kind of start to think about it. Yeah,
it's hard
definitely.
To do that, because you're like, this is so dumb, and then they don't bring you problems because they think that they're just dumb problems, And it's like, no, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. This is easy when you've done it 12,000 times. I'm sorry, I forgot I've done it 12,000 times. Right. This is your third.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's we talked about earlier. A lot of trying to slow down, be patient, and develop, and those things. And that's a lot of the stuff. It's a lot easier to do when you've had people for a long time.
Okay.
And that's one of the biggest mistakes. One of the bigger mistakes I see is people, we're really, really big on having the right people. And I'm not even saying the right person in the right seat or whatever else vanity people want to, talk about. I'm just saying having the right people that you want to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I either, after working with you for a few months, I either want to talk to you, want to teach you, want to be around you, or I don't want to waste another minute with you.
Yeah.
Like, because it just depends on the conversation. Are you asking the right questions? Are we getting somewhere? Are we actually developing?
That means a lot to me that you sat down for 2 hours with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, do I, but your times, no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's about having the right people that you really want to develop,
Mm.
and then spending the time to do that, because over time it's just trust, it's reps, it's not just experience in the industry, it's experience in doing your reps,
Yeah.
with you, and it's so different. And so we've always been really, really strong on doing whatever we got to do as far as retention goes, like keeping morale up, keeping it high, like, striking a good balance of like building a grassroots company, but also having like some of the benefits of like corporate type things, trying to blend and navigate that as much as possible, like while still trying to make money and invest in the company and do all those things is sometimes some things that like obviously people don't see or understand if they're on the team. But as long as your people know that you're not going to fire them for first mistake, second mistake, third mistake, like shit happens. And if shit happens more than once, it's probably your fault because you didn't have a checklist or a system in place for it. And so you should probably look in the mirror anyways.
Yeah.
But as long as people continue to develop and want to be around, and you want them to be around, then of course things get easier over time, and you should get your time back more because they should be taking more because they've had more reps.
Yeah. I see. Yeah. So, I mean, focusing on helping them get through the reps, but also making sure they're happy and you're creating a good environment there, and then they're going to take the time off you at that point. Two more questions. I'll let you go.
It's like a rapid fire thing.
No rapid fire. No. Just two more. So conflict. I've seen you kind of deal with conflict at work before. How do you think? And I know you've handled it like calmly for the most part.
When I'm depressed or when I'm in a good? No, I'm just kidding.
on the rock bottom one.
Shotgun 7 beers and say we'll solve it tomorrow.
Yeah. That's the best way. For handling it like in business compared to like at home, like have you seen like similarities with that? Like say like a conflict with something in business at work compared to like with a spouse or your children. Like do you handle it very similarly, or is it kind of different?
Both my wife and I are so much better at business than we are at.
Really?
No, I'm partially kidding, and I'm mostly being honest there. Business is so logical.
Yeah.
Are there emotional, and drama parts of it with the people part of it? Absolutely. But I see that through a different lens, and and sometimes I bring that lens home, and that's not the home lens. The home lens isn't logical. It's not like, the wife doesn't want the guy who's solved 100 problems to come home and solve how the kids were treating her that day.
Yeah.
She wants you to come home and hear her out, and and take the kids off her plate, and so she can do what she needs to do. And so purposely trying to not handle situations the same has been a big thing for me. Same thing with the kids. She'll say all the time, he's 3, dude. Like, he's not one of your employees. Like, he's not an employee. Like, he's 3.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're right. And trying to drink down. So the short of this is meeting them where they are,
Yeah.
right, and where they need you to be. And I'm like really, really, really trying hard to be better.
Well, you're new at it.
Yeah.
It's
3 years experience. For some people that's almost a degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be 4 years in and still won't know how to do the job, right?
Yeah.
That was a dad joke. I cracked myself up. But it is. It's trying to do those things differently than how I do those in business. And same thing for her. And even when I help her in her business, I just been through the reps of business that I'm so desensitized on a lot of things that I just don't like realize a lot of time. I'm a pretty intense dude. I'm aware, everybody like that knows me. I'm aware, I'm intense. But I also take a shirt off my back to like, help anybody or spend time with anybody that like, needs it. And I've helped a lot of people over the years and stuff. But I don't meet them where they are. I just tend to be like, just do this, and this. What do you mean? Do this, and this. This is easy, and very logical, very like it's step by step to me. That's how I compute things. It's do this to end up with this result.
Yeah.
So even with her and like her business, when we're talking, it's a lot of times I have to stop myself and ask more questions than and like try to get her to lead to her own conclusion, and then like validate her that that's good, instead of me just being like, what are you talking about? This is
problem solving.
This is so simple.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And again, I know but like that's just the truth of what happens, and it's a fallback spot. It's like an easy fallback for me that happens more often than I'm proud of, and I try to be like conscious of it, because again, we're going a million miles an hour, and there are many days that I feel like I only have so much time to do so much because I'm trying to get home. I have a guilt. There's a big guilt I carry of like leaving, or not coming home on time, or not being able at this stage to take a half a day and go take Weston to a ball game.
Yeah.
Or if the wife needs something, like having to say no is a big guilt. And so when I come home, I'm still like, there's no stop, go to the gym, decompress, come home, like, and switching over. You're just, a lot of times that's just kind of blending through, and it's like if you had a bad day, it's trying to check that at the door.
Yeah.
And and then she's got problems, and then you got problems, and then the kids got problems, and you're just like it's overstimulating at that point.
Definitely.
But yeah, so consciously trying to solve problems differently.
Yeah, I think like if she brings you something like what I've heard before, it's like you can either like, hey, do you want me to help you solve this problem right now, or do you want me to just kind of listen and ask questions and help you like validate it for you?
And then she's like, well, you should just know.
Yeah.
Like, you should know which one I want.
Yeah, exactly.
So generally I just shut up first, and then let her talk it out. But no, I've always so me and her, we got together like we were younger, but we were I was already in the thick of growing a business, and our conversations early on were very, I thought, like future driven, where I was like, listen, like me and you, we're good, like as in like we'll work out, but I got to go do this right now so that it does work out later.
I see.
When there's kids involved, and there's time, and there's coaching and t-ball and stuff like that. Like, but so when we were 23, 24, I was like, listen, like if you want a white picket fence and you want kids by 30, well, I got 7 years I gotta
grind.
We gotta go do this.
Yeah.
And then she started her business and stuff too. And so I feel like we've had probably more conversations in that like impactful, powerful, meaningful conversations in that 7-year period than probably some people do in their entire lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what do you want your family life to look like? What do you want? What do you want that day to day look like? Like, how do we want to raise our kids? Like, what are the values? Like, what school do we want to send them to? Do we want to be involved in the school? Do we want to be involved in sports? Like, how's that stuff look like at to us ideally at each stage? And then saying 7-8 years ago, what kind of money are we going to need in order to do those things?
Yeah.
And not only just the money, but what do the businesses have to look like in order to do those things and it not all disappear overnight, so like for as far as our like, do we have shit that we go through and have, bad fights and stuff like that? And yeah, but it's few and far between, and when it happens, it matters, and it's done by the next day because it's emotions and getting all the frustrations of raising kids and running businesses and everything out. And generally speaking, we point shit at each other that shouldn't be pointed shit at each other, and you let it all fly and you go low, and and you're trying to win, and it's not good and it's not healthy in that moment. But what I'm very proud of with both of us is that very shortly after that blow up, it's like, I'm sorry, I love you, I didn't mean any of that, I know you didn't mean any of that, we're both really frustrated, like let's talk about the actual issue, let's get down to the core of this. I want to understand your perspective. You understand mine. It's true. Like, I mean, she's a therapist, for God's sake. So like,
yeah.
don't therapy me, but like,
Yeah,
we're good. But like, it's like, hey, let's really get down to the, to what's going on and what behaviors like are we going to work on.
right.
And and if I make a commitment to make a change and it's not happening, like, check me. And just the same as you on your end. And that's what I like. That's what I appreciate. That's what I respect. Is because, yeah, dude, we're two human beings flying through a rock in space, like trying to figure out life together.
Yeah, right,
It's
right.
like we're just gonna keep trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And I think what you said too, it's like the business conflict resolution is logical, but the at home conflict resolution, there's more emotions tied to it, right?
Yeah,
It makes
dude,
it a little bit
just
more
happens.
complicated.
Especially when you got a 1-year-old screaming because she's tired, a 3-year-old asking you 37 times the same question,
Yeah.
freaking out, and all you're trying to do is make a piece of chicken. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to make this piece of chicken, and it's real easy to,
Yeah.
and so it's definitely a lot easier for things to get emotional because it's a lot of stimulation in one small 10 by 10 kitchen,
For sure.
or something like
Yeah.
that, and you're like, everybody get out.
I totally get it. Yep. One last question. This is more just like my favorite final question, little thought provoking. And I think you actually might have said it before, but we'll see what you say. So, if you could leave one thing behind, you're gone, leave the earth, what are you leaving behind to your kids, your family?
That chest I have buried in the backyard.
Yeah.
That 55-gallon drum of, I mean, if it were now, I think obviously I'd like to make it a little bit longer to be able to have a little bit more of an impact.
Yeah.
This question means a lot to me because, I mean, having lost my dad when I was 19 and my sister was 15.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Yeah, 20. I was 20. And my sister was 16. Like, you don't remember much. You remember some things, and I mean, even like, how much of your childhood, like, do you remember, right? When people tell you some stories or you look at photo albums, you start to remember stuff.
Yeah.
But you have a feeling, you have an influence, you have, you have a few probably impactful and molding stories that either were told to you or are told to you that shapes you, and that either comes from your parents. And whether the household was good, whether it was bad, whether there was, adversity and stress, or everything was hunky-dory and good, like, you don't remember everything, but there's a few moments. And so I would really like, obviously, to be around to get the opportunity to have a few more of those moments. For me, if I were to leave this earth, now, I would hope to leave my wife behind that could then tell my kids all the things that I built and wanted for them, and all those same work ethics, how hard we worked, how we didn't take no for an answer, like what our morals were, like our integrity and principle, and what, being a man is like, and what my daughter should, accept and not accept. Like, I would hope that she wouldn't be with me, or anyone else out there that knows me, that's close to me, that knows that, like, I'm very open, obviously. People know what I care about, what I don't care about, what I stand for, what I don't accept. And those are the things I would just want to be passed on to my kids, and those standards to be upheld for them, and for them to not be, let out easy.
I see.
Taken out easy, because I think this little rock we're floating on is only going to get harder and harder to win in. And so I think all the things that we talk about, the things that we do, I actually think that it's going to be, I think it's going to be easier to win if we're harder on our kids now than
Mhm.
it ever will be, generation by generation by generation. I think we're only getting softer and softer, and I think it's only getting harder out there.
Mhm.
So all of these things that we talk about, that we strive for, and like it's trying to figure out, though, when you've built a life to give them everything, how do you not,
Mhm.
right? Like how do you give them constructive adversity by not kicking them out of your house or like ruining your own life to better theirs?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's the challenge. So yeah,
That's awesome.
there's my thoughts.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'd have 100 follow up questions, but I'll let you go today. So thanks
Good
for
man.
coming on, brother. This has been awesome.
Cool. Appreciate you.